Hi, my name is Brooke Wisenhunt, and I'm from Missouri State University. And one of the things that excites me about STP is that I feel like that is where I found my professional home. After spending a lot of years going to other professional academic conferences, I landed at a conference full of people from STP and really felt like this was the place that were my people. And I think that that's something that you can miss out on if you don't join this organization. So go to teachpsych.org and please join and become one of these people that is a member of our community.
When people ask me what I do, I don't say I'm a counseling psychologist. I say I am a teacher.
Yeah.
And that's always what has meant the most.
You've just heard Loreto Prieto from Iowa State University. Eric had the opportunity to sit down with Loreto for this 218th episode of Psych Sessions, conversations about teaching and stuff. Would it benefit you and your students to know about the latest in clinical and educational assessments? Well, we're proud to partner with Multi Health Systems, MHS, who has been a trusted name in psychological assessment for over 40 years, delivering science-backed solutions for clinical psych, education, and more. And recently, MHS launched the Connors CPT Online Suite, an advanced tool set designed to assist in diagnosing ADHD and other attention-related conditions. The suite includes 3 powerful assessments: the Connors Kata, the Connors CPT-3, and the Connors K-CPT-2. These tools help psychologists evaluate inattentiveness, impulsivity, and sustained attention through both visuals and auditory tests. You can stay on top of what's going on in psychological measurement. Pause this episode and head to mhs.com/email division to sign up for their clinical and educational newsletter. You can also follow MHS on LinkedIn for the latest updates. Psych Sessions is sponsored by W.W. Norton. Are you looking for more activities to promote scientific literacy? ZAPS 3.0 interactive labs from W.W. Norton are brief, hands-on activities that invite students to actively participate in the process of psychological research and discovery. Utilizing a consistent 5-part framework and incorporating transparent design principles, students experience classic psychological studies like the Stroop effect, false memory, the serial position effect, signal detection, and more. Once they've completed the experiment, students can compare their data with national data and their own classmates, offering the opportunity for rich in-class or online discussions. Bring the science of psychology to life for your students with ZAPS. For Psych Sessions listeners new to ZAPS, you can try it for free the next time you teach. Just go to siegel.wwnorton.com/Psych Sessions, and the folks at W.W. Norton will even integrate it into your LMS for you. That is Siegel, like the bird, SEAGULL.wwnorton.com/Psych Sessions.
Welcome to another episode of Psych Sessions. I am so thrilled to be talking to my longtime friend, Loreto Prieto from Iowa State University. Loreto, how are you, my friend?
I'm good, Eric. It's so good to see you again. It's been a minute since we've had the chance to draw a little bit, so I've really been looking forward to this.
And I appreciate the time that you're taking out on the Friday afternoon leading into a Thanksgiving holiday break. And so you're a real trooper for recording with me at this time. Will Iowa State have the entire week off or just a couple of days?
They recently expanded that here. And so they're giving the students the entire week off, which is, as a classroom educator, is very helpful for both sides of the desk.
It is. I agree with you. But I'm going to say this, and I've been saying this for a long time. It's so hard to come back after that week off.
Eric, I couldn't agree more.
It's so hard. I know we can't do it at Thanksgiving, but my secret wish that no one really cares about is that we just push through, go that week and get out a week earlier. I know you can't really skip Thanksgiving, but we could skip spring break and get out a week earlier in the spring because the momentum is all gone. By the time my school comes back on December 2nd, nobody wants to be there, faculty, staff, and students included.
Oh, without question. I mean, I hear you, brother, because related, I've been yelling in the wind, it seems, for years that I think we should actually go ahead and consider, and we work on the semester system at ISU. I realize this may not work well for quarter systems or other institutions, but I don't see why we can't start at the very beginning of August and call an end to the semester when Thanksgiving break gets here, because, both for us, we faculty and the students, they're coming back after having a break. Most educators will often cram in some major assignments as well as final exams in those 2 weeks. And it just harkens me back to the early days in my athletic training where, the wisdom was do not rest before you're finished. You just keep pushing, because once you let your body rest, it's going to be very hard to come back strong.
Well, I'm going to come back to athletic training here in a minute, but you're reminding me, my undergraduate institution, which I'll talk about in a little while, when I first started attending there, they were on quarters. They called them terms, 3 10-week terms. And we would start in September and then break at Thanksgiving and not come back until after Christmas, after New Year.
There you go.
We would take 6 weeks off. In my freshman and sophomore year of my undergrad, I got a job because I could work for 6 weeks over the holidays, and a lot of retailers need extra holiday help that they don't need year round. And then we'd go back in January for the second 10-week term. And then the third 10-week term, we'd probably get out late May, early June, but we had 6 weeks off.
That's nice. And, not to sound jaded or cynical, but after 30 years in the academy, we come, I think, as classroom teachers to understand very quickly that it is about the dollars and cents.
Yes.
And so what I've actually seen is a greater proliferation of what we call it, I think it's called a J term, where
now, January term, sure.
Right. So now every institution is pushing its summer hours. Every institution is pushing these 6 to 8 week courses, over break. And I think that does bring some real benefit to students who are often looking to abbreviate the time and the cost associated with their education. But boy, it's just we may be going the wrong way, at least for an old curmudgeon like me.
Well, first off, this is going to be the curmudgeon podcast because I'm right there with you, my friend. Boise State, I don't think does it anymore, but we used to squeeze in a 3-week class somewhere in between during Christmas break. Mm-hmm. And you'll enjoy this. We didn't call it J term. We called it winterum. So winter and interim together, winterum.
It's all about the advertising, right, Eric?
Right. And you were talking about, of course, there could be benefits to students. I could see students knocking out a prerequisite during J term that they could then take their spring semester. It makes good sense. I think to some students, and boy, you're right about the financial piece. I mean, my campus doesn't come out and say this, but we want to keep students on campus over breaks because that means the residence halls need employees. That means the food service needs employees and there's more revenue. And so, we talk about retention and things like that, and revenue generation is right there with it.
Oh, no question. And for the last 30, 40 years, even more increasingly, say in the 80s and beyond, with brick and mortar, with the competition between available online resources, historically always community colleges, which are great institutions. I got my start at what I call a COCO, and we have great articulation agreements with all folks, but you're trying to keep the customers home and give them what they want.
So, Loreto, it's really sweet that you mentioned that. I actually looked you up a little bit earlier today and made a couple of notes to myself. And an Associate of Arts degree at Black Hawk College in Moline, Illinois. Do you remember way back when?
Oh, if I give my head a pretty good knock, some of those memories come back. I grew up in a very a blue collar working class family and neighborhood. And when I was younger, going to public school, I looked at college kids, and back in the Quad Cities, you may not be familiar, but we have a pretty prestigious college, Augustana, there, where a lot of pre-med students go and whatnot. And they all looked like, to me, that was like something for rich kids. They must be brainiacs. And, my parents worked for Farm Implement. My dad smelted, the cores for tractor engines, and my mom was a skilled laborer. And if you told me that I would be a professor at a university at some point when I was in my teens or high school years, I would have looked at you like maybe you needed some help because you weren't in touch with reality. And so the community college, I think, is vital for many students for various reasons. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was a place where I garnered some efficacy with collegiate level academics. I wasn't necessarily the best student in high school. I'll be very forthcoming about that.
Okay. And we'll circle back to that.
Yeah. It wasn't for a lack of, grades or interest. It was just, I think I just had so many things going on for myself as I was growing and developing that school wasn't a high priority at that time. And so I thought, oh boy, going to college sure seemed like a very anxiety-provoking kind of goal to set. And I tell you, Eric, I can still remember that first semester fall at Blackhawk when I got my report card. And, I saw the grades and I thought, holy cow, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
Whether you're a passionate psychology enthusiast or a dedicated college professor, we know that every student is unique, and so should be their learning journey. That's why we're thrilled to introduce you to Macmillan Learning's Achieve platform. Imagine a space where learning is as dynamic as the students themselves. Achieve offers a personalized experience with interactive ebooks and collaborative class management tools designed to meet each student's needs. But that's not all. Immerse yourself in our multimedia study tools and explore over 100 new videos, each crafted to spark curiosity and deepen understanding. For those who believe in empowering students with essential skills, Achieve has exclusive skill activities to help them master note-taking and APA-style usage. It's more than just learning. It's about preparing students for success in the real world. Innovation in education is at the heart of what we do. So why not be a part of this journey? Discover how you can inspire and transform learning experiences by visiting macmillanlearning.com/psych sessions. Together with Macmillan Learning, let's inspire what's possible for every learner. Until next time, keep exploring and keep learning.
And that foundation there really helped set the stage. I transferred later to Iowa to finish my bachelor's degree. And, I've been amazed at the transitions in my life, Eric. I've been so fortunate. So many good people, so many good educators. Like I said, I would never have dreamed in my younger life that I would have the honor and privilege of teaching students and generating research that hopefully can help us, in teaching and learning. And so, those were anxiety-provoking, but good days because I think I found my feet.
Absolutely. So there's a lot to unpack there. So first off, I know exactly where the Quad Cities are. I went to college at Monmouth College in Monmouth, Illinois.
Sure. No.
And so about 45 minutes away from the Quad Cities. I didn't do the community college route, but I went to a small private liberal arts school. At that time, 640 students total enrolled in my entire institution.
Wow.
And so we knew each other. We'd met. And so Loreto, I really appreciate just your reflection and the path. And it's funny, you mentioned that, you couldn't imagine yourself being a professor, but you're very humble. You left out that you're a named professor at Iowa State.
I am, pal. And that has been probably one of the great honors and career toppers that I've been lucky enough to get. And here at ISU, and my understanding is that there certainly aren't as many places that offer a distinction for people who are a bit more focused in teaching and learning like ISU does. We have 3 levels of rank and title above full professor, and that's a distinguished professor of course, which most places have, which recognizes research and grant getting and rainmaking. And then we also have what are called university professors who have done an inordinate amount of service on behalf of the institution. These are people who've put in 25 years worth of hard work, really building the institution up, making network connections, community and nationally and internationally. I'm aware of what some of these folks have done. It's amazing. And then I was fortunate enough to be nominated and bestowed the title of a moral professor, which harkens back to the Morrill Act, which provided, that federal act provided the opportunity for states to establish what has always been known as the land grant institutions. And Iowa State was one of the first to receive that recognition, those funds to do that. And so, ISU is a great place for really paying attention to a balance. As a land grant school, our mission is to provide practical training primarily, and we do that through engineering and ag and vet med and all those things. But in the liberal arts, it's nice also to be able to focus on research or teaching efforts that are very pragmatic. And so, but thank you for mentioning that, pal. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, it's not surprising knowing what little I know about your career and your accomplishments, publications. Now, I'm assuming that do you work with undergrads as well as grad students, or are you a grad student only type of instructor?
Oh. One of the best joys, and I have to confess, I'll make a public confession, undergraduate education is my true love.
Okay.
And I have actually, since I came into the academy, my posts have always been as core faculty of APA accredited doctoral programs in counseling psych. However, in the institutions in which I've worked, I have had the opportunities often to teach undergraduate students. And, I love it, Eric. It's great for so many reasons because there is, as you know, quite a different approach to especially professional training, the training of professional psychologists.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
At the doctoral level, lots at stake. Service to mental health clientele brings with it heavy responsibilities that we educators need to inculcate into students and give them a deep appreciation of that. And I think, just for me, one of the things I often have a thought of is that, my undergraduate students, I don't have to worry about them moving out of my class, being, say, the only pathology class they've ever had, and starting to work with clients or patients and having all that high stakes stuff. They are there to really be introduced to things that they have great interest in. I tell you what, it's always been true, but I walk into a classroom and I've always said, I don't care how tired I am. I don't care how stressed I am. Boy, when I'm with those students, it's the best feeling in the world.
Look, so are you an extrovert or an introvert, Loreto?
People have told me I look like the biggest extrovert there is, right? I'm loud. I laugh loud. I talk quite a bit. I love to, just kind of shoot the ball. But inside, I would say probably there's a part of me that is very private and solitary, for lack of a better word. I've always, my comfort is reading for many years. It's been reading and learning, both professional and non. I love watching films. I love just really being absorbed in them and having that personal experience. And it just kind of, it's hard to describe, Eric. I think and maybe it's just because as I've gotten older, it becomes a bit easier and pleasant to be alone and have your own time.
The reason I asked you that is because your reaction that you talked about when you walk into a classroom. Not that anyone on the planet will believe me, but I am a painfully shy introvert. I really, truly am. But the phrase that I use is that when I walk into a classroom, I flip the switch. Mm-hmm. And I do feel that same energy. And I need to know that I'm going to energize myself to be, let's face it, with undergraduates, somewhat performative and get their attention and keep their attention and slip in some knowledge and have them practice some skills. And so, and then I come back from class and I'm completely exhausted. Extroverts tend to get energized by being around other people. And I can flip that switch for about 75 minutes twice a week. And then I got to go rest and recover, my friend.
Yes, I hear you. I've always sort of thought to myself, if you don't feel like you've given, almost like, so I happen to also be a musician and I played in bands. And so when you're playing out and you're playing a gig, at the end of that gig, you've given everything through your voice, through the music. And if you're not basically a limp noodle by that end of that time, you haven't done your job.
Right.
At least for me. And, I get you exactly. I mean, back in the bad old days as an assistant, when we were teaching 3-4 classes a day, prep and everything, oh my God, at the end of the day, you just kind of like conk out. So I hear you.
So you first off, what instrument do you play?
Well, I started on drums in my tweenie and teen years, and then was heading off to college at that point in my life. Music's always been very important to me. And I thought, well, I need something portable. And, it's either going to be a keyboard or a guitar. And so I chose the guitar. And so I am a ham and egger rhythm player. And the reason for that is that in every band I've been a part of, I'm the front man. I sing. And so that's I can sing and play rhythm at the same time. I can't, multitask more than that. And even that takes a little practice for me. But yeah. And then I, for reasons of practicality, had to learn to fiddle my way around on the bass a bit. And so, yeah, mostly strings. And, but now my son and I, we have a little music room at home where we have a complete setup. We've got a nice set of Pearl drums, bass guitar, a couple 3 electrics, a keyboard, and he is a keyboard person. He knows music theory. I don't. I'm a an empirical player. He can tell you the theory and all that stuff. He's a wonderful composer. But yeah, I'm just, I play rock and blues. I stomp and scream, try to channel, Jim Morrison. I mean, that to me, that's the good time.
So did your parents ever give you a hard time about you played drums while you were in their house, but once you moved out, you stopped playing drums?
No, but
well, good for them.
They didn't feel it. So.
Okay, very, very good. Just before you had mentioned that, you were talking about adopting and prepping 3 or 4 classes, and you made me remember this little tidbit. When I was first starting off as a baby assistant professor, let's say a general psych class, I would adopt the second best general psych book that I could find. And I would keep the first best for my notes and my lecture ideas. And so right. I'm not really proud to admit this, but it's the truth. I didn't give my students what I thought was the best. I gave them what I thought was second best.
Well, you know what, though? I think, Eric, and there's scarce pieces of research on this, although there's a lot of allusion to it, and a lot of, like, for example, the biographical stuff that STP has offered, where we hear just master educators that we recognize as great folks, and they talk about the same sort of approach. I mean, we all don't know what the hell we're doing that first fall when we step in a classroom. Right. Half of us are trying to stay at least 3 chapters ahead of where we are in class and sweating bullets as somebody is definitely going to ask us a question that we don't know the answer to. And, that sort of, I think that kind of approach is a very normal thing. I know everybody I've ever talked to has gone through it. And I think that it's likely an unavoidable part of development. And in some ways, perhaps a good one, because for those of us who truly love teaching and take this, what Steve Myers and I have always called a true arm of professional practice. Forget about clinical counseling in school. For the rest of us, for all the rest of the disciplines, teaching is our arm of professional practice. And if we take that as deeply seriously as a science and art, as I know many of us do, then, that motivation to keep becoming, little by little, the best that we can be and offer our students that, that's terrific. I mean, it's not like, the sorting hat is on us and we go into,
right.
like sensation and perception or social class and we're ready to teach like, Elliot Aronson or something on the first day. Not going to happen.
No, you were talking about being 3 chapters ahead of your students. I remember being 30 minutes ahead of my students. Loreto, I seriously remember a grad student, first years as teaching as an assistant professor. I'd be prepping at 8:30 for a 9:00 a.m. course. Yeah, I was at those times lucky to be 30 minutes ahead. And the thing I will tell you I remember from that is that I remember coming home to my then wife at the time and saying, I wish I could refund their money today, because they got a crappy experience from someone who doesn't have a lot of experience. I feel so bad. If I could afford it, I would refund their money. Luckily, those days have been less and less.
Well, I'll tell you what, I lied. It was never 3 chapters. And
also, it's okay. You can say what you want. There's no fact checking here.
No, I lived the same life, particularly when you're covering multiple courses first time. Sleep is just something we forget about. Probably for my first few years as an assistant, the amount of sleep I needed to sacrifice just to keep afloat is rivaled only by the first year or 2 of my son's birth, in which I can claim no real, my then wife, it's amazing. She's a hero. How the hell did you do this? And
Right.
how the hell do you nurse? And you have 15 minutes free today. Do I want to nap, eat, or shower? Right. And so it was, it's a tough time. And the reason I really appreciated what you say there with that comment, Eric, about refunding their money. I've had the privilege of teaching a teaching of psychology class
Sure.
at ISU. And one of the things I often tell my students is walk into lecture each day as if your paycheck is going to come from passing the hat around.
Nice.
And
Nice.
your students will give you the money that they believe was worth, what you had to tell them, because it's kind of sanitized. It's all electrons and EFTs, and we envision what we do on a daily basis is different from where that money comes from for the mortgage and everything. But very much, again, if you are locked in with passion and commitment, as I know you are, and all of the teachers I know are, you go in there really wanting to give your best, your all, and feel like the students got what they came for.
Yeah, sometimes on the financial piece, I have flipped the script at times, meaning I've asked them, figure out how much you're paying per course this semester. Divide that number by 30, because we're going to meet 30 times, 15 weeks times twice a week. Now figure out how much are you paying when you blow off my class. You have every right to do it. You're an American. You can blow off my class. And I'm not even talking about participation and attendance policies and points. But if you want to blow off $53.29, and I'm just making that up, but if you want to blow off that amount by skipping class, just remember that you're flushing $53.29 down the drain.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah.
I've heard, I don't know who said it. I suppose one could now Google it and find out. But there's a quote or a paraphrase of a quote from somebody that a college education is something that people are willing to pay an exorbitant amount for and not take advantage of.
Right. And there's a comedian out there that has a joke, and I'm not going to get it right exactly, but it goes something like, I would have gone to college for 4 years, but I couldn't afford the cover charge.
I like that.
Now, speaking of quotes, tell me about your history of Latin quotes in your email signature line. Where did that come from, if I may?
Believe it or not, from one of the most simple and regular places that one might imagine. So, like others in the country, I was enamored with the Walking Dead series.
Okay.
And there is a place, there's a part of that storyline where one of the characters says to another character, or shows him what her husband, who apparently is now passed on, had written, which is the beginning of the, be strong and of, tough mind, quote. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. I did. First of all, I didn't know what the hell it meant. Second, I thought, well, let's see what the heck this means, and found out it was a part, Ovid's, a bigger part of a larger quote by him. Be strong and tough. Eventually, this pain will provide benefits. And so, I was moved by that. And other than that, my whole Latin vocabulary is nothing but sine qua non and, e pluribus unum and, all that stuff. But that's about it. So, but that was just kind of a romantic thing.
Every time I get an email from you, I end up Googling something because I want to know what those quotes stand for.
Yeah, I've given some thought about those. I remember the days when it was just a signature block, and then everybody tended to sort of reflect a part of themselves, their philosophy, a social platform of some kind. And so I think for me, there's a theme in those quotes in my signature block that speaks to a couple of big things that are meaningful to me. And one is that, my learning, whether that's in the classroom, in my office, outside in my real life, comes in fits and starts, and largely through mistakes. And those costs and pain that I have paid for those mistakes I have made is what has opened the door for me to become better than I was when I made those mistakes. That's why Bernard Malamud's quote from The Natural, and I didn't know about that book or anything until I saw the movie, The Natural. But then reading that story and that quote, it was so powerful, that we have two lives, the one we learn with and the one we lived after that. And then the second thing is generally about pain. I suppose, I have had people tell me, gosh, that's kind of a downer. What's going on there? But I think about pain as a general descriptor of all the things as human beings that we experience. It could be disappointment, it could be heartbreak, it could be loss. And so for me, those things have, it's too trite to say it in this way, but it's sort of akin to the Nietzsche idea of whatever doesn't kill me makes me stronger.
Sure.
And so using that pain, which is everywhere in our lives, always, some argue that our lives are nothing but a process of loss. And how we adapt to those losses and changes is what really makes the mark of who we are as people.
That's incredibly profound. And now time for Eric. Yeah, so I'm gonna transition us a little bit. I want to circle back to your parents, if you don't mind.
No.
Loreto, growing up, and this is my absolute favorite question that I ask when I interview people, was the question in your household, will you go to college, or was the question, what college will you go to?
The question in my household was, I really want you to finish high school. And that was it.
Okay.
None of my immediate family, very few of my extended family via, say, my first cousins on both sides, about a third of us to say, I don't know, maybe 40% went to college. Only three of us hold advanced degrees. And I am one of two doctorate holders. Most of my family, my cousins, they're blue collar or white collar workers, and so college was something for me that my mom, who primarily raised me, always encouraged and said, if that's what you want to do, that's great. But to be very honest, Eric, the family, we had no money. I signed my life away in loans for undergraduate, graduate school, and worked like we all do. And so, it was new territory. I truly was a first generation student back then.
Loreto, do you have siblings?
I do. I have one older brother. He's significantly older than me. And so, very different life experiences.
Oh, okay. So it's just the two of you.
Yeah.
And what's the age gap, may I ask?
Yeah. 7 years.
Okay. So seven is substantial, but not a lot. I mean, it probably felt a lot to you. Not a lot of 9-year-olds hang out with 2-year-olds. So I get that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and we just kind of lived in different worlds, and so, uh, and my brother also lived with my father for a great part of his growth.
Gotcha. Okay.
So my folks, by way of explanation, my folks were actually divorced when I was still an infant,
Yeah.
and so when I say I was raised largely by my mom, that's why.
So, I really also, this may be my second favorite question. I'm not sure. What were you like in high school? Did you do, now you mentioned athletics earlier. Were you an athlete? Were you in drama? Were you in debate? Were you the president of the chess team? I mean, what were you like?
I think you've probably been talking to some of my old buddies, because some of the things you named, it's like, geez, you're good at this, Eric.
Thanks.
Yeah, I was, to be very straightforward, Eric, I firmly believe I probably was, I probably had an undiagnosed case of ADHD.
Okay.
And I say that because later in life, I hear from my cousins or family stories about when I was young, and they were like, "Oh my God, you're crazy. You were everywhere. You were, and I look back now and I think, ooh, maybe I was. And so I believe that's maybe to probably is the case. And so I was squirrely. I was very unformed would be a good word. I knew the things I liked. I knew things I didn't like. But I also think I had such a very limited view of the smorgasbord the world had to offer. I was very academically inclined. And so, doing well in school wasn't too much of a difficulty for me until I got to high school. And that was back in the days of tracking. Okay. And so, I'd get in these higher track classes and then like, oh my God. Actually I had to work, hard. And, but the ironic thing was, like I say, the family stuff, not so much a plan for college. My guidance counselor did not even talk to me about college. And so it's, for me, it was very much strike out on my own and just explore this possibility and go as far as I could.
Yeah. That last part's a very common theme that I hear from talking to people. It's either one of two things. My guidance counselor told me I would never amount to anything, or my guidance counselor was my pseudo savior and saw something in me and promoted me and encouraged me. It's usually one of those two routes when I have that conversation with folks.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Loreto, I've got here with you a world-class expert in counseling psychology and many other things. If you'll indulge me for a minute, I want to ask you a question that I get asked a lot, but I would love to hear your answer to this question. Are you okay with that?
Oh, of course.
Okay. So here's the question I get asked a lot. What's the difference between counseling and clinical psychology?
So, and say, I know you can't throw anything at me because, we're on Zoom here, but
only virtually.
There you go. Stop me if you start to go to sleep. The two specialties, as we currently know them in the APA and in practice, came from very different beginnings. Clinical psychology was quite wed and always has been to medicine and, the traditional, brass laboratory stuff that's present in history that we all, I'm a history geek, so I love to read about. Counseling psychology actually was a, step sib, we'll say, of counselor education. Okay. And so, it's funny, in departments of psychology, people call the counseling psych faculty and students counseling. But in actuality, that's a completely different profession. And so, the counselor ed is much more wed to human potential kinds of things, much more akin in some ways to the way that social work and other sorts of community-based specialties or professions look at things. And the American Counseling Association is the head of counselor education. Around post-World War II, what became known now as counseling psychologists broke away from that ilk and decided they wanted to be more scientific. They wanted to bring research into clinical practice to a greater degree. And so in 46, the Division of 17 was formed. Fast forward ahead, used to be, the old counseling psych people were nothing good for nothing but vocational counseling or working in counseling centers or something like that. In the ensuing decades now, basically, you put the curricula of counseling and clinical programs together. They're virtually identical. But a lot of stereotype or old history about, we're either going to be in counseling centers or the VA and we're not very research oriented or whatever. It just doesn't hold true anymore. So currently, that's kind of how I see the difference anyway.
So a better savvy question for me, I guess I'm not asking it that often, but a more savvy version of that would be, what's the difference between counselor education, counseling psychology, and clinical psychology, if I'm hearing you correctly?
Yeah, I think that's very fair, Eric. And, recently, counselor education has really strengthened and forged their own path in many departments of education. Historically, counseling psychologists were the instructors of counselor education master's programs. But KCREP has strengthened the profession of counseling, and the two stand pretty separate now these days.
Yeah, you mentioned that Division 17 is the counseling division in APA. Are you an active member of that at all?
Yes, I have been throughout most of my career. Oh, that's an interesting point, Eric. I was just mulling over earlier today. STP has always been, my heart. I'm fortunate enough to hold fellowship in both divisions, but STP was the one I applied for and was fortunate enough to get first. When people ask me what I do, I don't say I'm a counseling psychologist. I say I am a teacher.
Yeah.
And that's always what has meant the most. So I think accordingly, over the years, yes, I do identify as a counseling psychologist in terms of my training, but STP is just simply and teaching and learning. That's what it's all about for me.
So, Loreto, one of the things I've enjoyed about our conversation is that you're so reflective. You have this big picture mentality, this big picture worldview. I don't get to talk to very many people about the founding of clinical psychology after World War II. I'm a little bit of a history buff, and I know just enough to be dangerous. But the place I'm going with this is, I'll start here. Let's do it this way.
Sure.
I think I'm about 2 to 3 years away from retirement. Mm-hmm. I don't know your situation. If this is too personal, I will edit it out. But are you looking at that yet? Or are you just having so much fun, your head down, and you're enjoying everything?
Yes, and no. I am not. I am not looking to retire because my son.
Good for you.
My son, who I love, is still on the damn payroll. And so, the tens of thousands of dollars that I pay out every year for his college education pretty much means I'm going to be working until I'm on the wrong side of the grass, as they say.
Is he going to Iowa State?
He is.
All right, isn't my son went to Boise State? So you don't get a coupon?
I wish we did. I just brought this up to our new dean, and it was like, even a discount we would like.
Yeah. Yeah. Boise State doesn't call it a coupon. That's what I call it. But yeah, for loved ones, either dependents or spouses, it's 2/3 off.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's 2/3.
What I could buy today with that 2/3 savings, forget about it.
Yeah, so okay, so you're funding. All right, so you don't see any end in sight.
Well, I'm hoping I can retire around 70. My partner and I, we would like to have just more time to, she's already retired.
He's waiting for you, buddy.
Well, I know, doggone it. And I just wish that we want to travel and those things. And my son's got another year and a half, and I'll feel good about what I've been able to do for him.
Of course.
And then, yeah, it's like, love you, kid. See ya, boot. Don't let the screen door hit you in the butt on the way out.
Here's your hat. What's your hurry?
Yes. Nothing like a little parent humor in there to lighten the day.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Loreto, I want to be respectful of time. Thinking about our conversation today, was there anything that you said, oh, I hope Eric and I talk about X, or I hope we get around to talking about Y? Can you please solve that equation for X and Y?
Oh, sure. There were, as I was wondering what might be of interest or what I could have to say that would be useful for the podcast. I imagined, well, maybe Eric is going to want to chat about, my early research stuff and teaching assistant development, or, what am I doing now? Or maybe just kind of about musings as we have about what our life in academia has been like, which is actually a wonderful, I've had a great time discussing this with you. But the funny thing was, and I'm actually, I'm sitting here with a list because the one thing I was hoping you might ask is, who inspired you? Who mentored you?
Okay, Loreto, I'm curious to know who inspired you. I mean, when we talk about this, who mentored you?
I'm glad you asked that, Eric. When I was in grad school, I had many teachers, especially, and a guy I look at as my second father, who was also an educator. So a lot of personal and academic inspiration. But when I got to grad school, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. Everybody goes and you think, oh, I'm just going to get a license and I'm going to practice. My first year in grad school, I was having my meeting with my advisor, Betsy Altmeyer, and she was talking about, it kind of like, okay, so I don't know what the hell was going on with me. I'm probably just not paying attention. So it's like Charlie Brown's teacher. Okay, it's like wah, 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 wah. Extra money. Wah, 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 wah. And, whoa. And what she said to me was that one of my colleagues, student colleagues, had needed to give up a TA position because it wasn't going to work with their schedule. And Betsy asked me, would you like to have this position? And what I heard was extra money. And I said, sure. And that started the adventure. Eric, that started the adventure. And Betsy was a phenomenal supervisor of us. We were a team of TAs for a certain high enrollment course. And then when I got my master's thesis published, I ran down to the library at Iowa, and I ran down to where the journal collections were, and I opened the journal, and there was my name on an article in a journal where other people could actually see it. This little article I worked on in my crappy little shotgun apartment in grad school. And I became a junkie for that. There's something about that. It's like, oh my gosh. And so I thought to myself, well, where can you teach? And do research and get published. And that was kind of what led me into academia. Even before I finished grad school, and bear with me, Eric,
You're good.
I've got a couple of folks actually I'd like to say thanks to. But even before grad school, Ginny Matthey.
Yeah, I know Ginny.
Yep. Was president of STP at the time, had put out a call for folks that might be interested in doing some things. And I'm just some kid, at the University of Iowa, don't know anything. But I knew then my master's thesis concerned efficacy in TA development. And I knew then I wanted to focus on what STP had to offer. And she gave me a position on a committee that happened to be chaired by my incredibly good friend, Steve Myers at Roosevelt University. And in addition to that being just a wonderful thing to do with Steve, Steve and I published quite a few articles early in our careers. He graduated a year ahead of me, I believe. And I credit Steve, and Steve, if you're listening, buddy, I hope I've said it before, I'm telling you right now, thank you. Because Steve taught me a lot about writing. I learned so much working with Steve, and he's a tremendously great writer, and he was such a wonderful colleague. Both of us kind of being such newbies, but and his collaborating with him, knowing him and his family for all these years has been just a real prize. So that was I've always considered Steve to be a big mentor for me. Mm-hmm. Another major thing that occurred was when Randy Smith gave me the opportunity to begin ad hoc reviews for TOP. And later, once I had done the requisite number of reviews, which I think in that day was around 30 or 40 he wanted you to do before he would even consider having you on the editorial board, he did grant me a place on the TOP editorial board, which was my very first editorial board position. And Randy proved to be such a good and powerful mentor. Folks that know Randy know that he's not a big chatter, but he can say a ton with just a few words, Yeah. And so I do want to say, thank you to them. And then I have just a couple of people that I'll rip through the list. But in addition, to Ginny, Jane Hallinan, profound effect on me. She's a wonderful person. Neil Lutsky gave me opportunities with STP. He actually allowed me to chair a task force on diversity, which after several years, STP changed in the bylaws to have it become a permanent committee.
That's right.
Dave Johnson, Bill Addison, my very good friend, Barney Bynes. I don't know anybody who doesn't love Barney Bynes. And Barney, he's a wonderful man. I can't say enough good things about him, and good friend. Bill Hill, Bill Butskist was a confidant and soundboard. He's a wonderful guy. And Janet Carlson was also very kind to me, and worked with her, when she was chief on the DCS, and she's been wonderful. And of course, my very, very good friend, Reagan Gurin, and he and I actually co-edited a book together, as did Steve Myers and I. And all of those folks, Victor Benazzi, Ken Keith, Diane Halpern, who have given me opportunities out of the goodness of their hearts. Eric, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have whatever it is I'm able to offer to students and, STP, if it weren't for those people. And that's why I feel such a kinship with our society, is because those folks and a lot of folks that's what they always did for the newbies coming in, the nurturing, the opportunities. And I will be forever grateful to those folks.
You understand, my friend, that out of all of those superstars that you just named, that you are among them. You understand that, right?
That's very kind of you to say, pal. No, and I'm not being humble. If anything, they showed me ways in which to really be effective, be a good leader. I certainly don't put myself in that crowd, Eric, but I do. Into that, but thank you very much.
I do.
It's just I've been lucky. Not only could I never foresee that I would be here where I am, but I've been incredibly lucky to have been a part of STP and all its different parts and of its society, and to have folks like them and great colleagues, Eric, like you, to always work with.
You may not think so great after this. Loyal listeners know that you just used the magic word lucky, of which I am not a fan of. I think, Loreto, I don't think you were lucky, to be blunt with you. I think you worked your ass off. You worked hard. You saw opportunities. You took opportunities. You made opportunities for other people. I get where that phrasing comes from. I get the heart by which it comes from. Bill McKeechee used to say, I was just lucky. Bill McKeechee wasn't lucky. He worked his ass off and made amazing contributions just like you have. And so this is my personal soapbox. Sorry that you stumbled onto it.
That's okay. Don't worry.
I think people say they're lucky because it's a sign of humility. They don't want to brag about what they've accomplished. They don't want to, but I also think when people say they're lucky, I think it can be misleading to other people, because other people who look up to us may go, wow, they were lucky. I hope I get lucky too. And that's not the answer. The answer is working hard, doing things sometimes you don't want to do, serving on committees, serving students, teaching students, doing assessments, all those things. And so you do have freedom of speech here. I will not edit out the word lucky, but my friend, I respectfully disagree that luck had very much at all to do with your success.
I appreciate you saying that, Eric. And actually, you make a good argument. Maybe it's better said that in my experience, there are a lot of people who are bright, who bust their butts, who have that gumption, that initiative, are willing to take risks, foray into places that they don't even know whether the fork goes on the left or the right.
Yeah.
And they never got a chance, though, to show all that they could do. I saw this a lot in my young life among the blue collar people I grew up with and knew, fiercely intelligent, but not very educated.
Right. Yes.
So, what I agree with you wholly, my friend. The luck part of it is that the people I've identified and named, for whatever reasons, found whatever in their heart, found that whatever I could do at that time would benefit, and they gave me that chance.
They gave you the chance, but then you took the chance and you did the work.
Yes, that is fair to say. You are absolutely right. And these people that have so influenced me as mentors, to a person, every one of them busted their ass and gave and sacrificed. None of it came easy to any of us or them. And so I agree with you, my friend. You're absolutely right.
I'm sorry for schooling you about that. If you listen to many other episodes, I'm not picking on you. I'm picking on the term luck, and I understand how people mean it, and thank you for being tolerant of my little tirade.
No, not at all. In fact, as you were explaining, your perspective, I thought, Eric is absolutely right. And one of the things I think that our new crops of students need to understand, be they undergraduate or in our graduate programs, is that nothing will replace the hard work.
Yeah.
Nothing is going to replace that.
I know we're almost out of time, but I will share with you my biggest challenge with my undergraduates these days is confidence. Mm-hmm. My undergraduates are smart, they're bright, they're hardworking, but they don't believe in what they've learned. They don't believe in their own skills. And so they're hesitant, they're jumpy, they don't want to make those mistakes. They want to be perfect for whatever reason. And they lack the confidence in knowing what they know and doing what they're able to do. And that's the battle that I fight every day in my classroom.
I have heard that from so many educators, higher educators, Eric. I think you have hit it right on the head.
Well, ending with me being right is a great way to end every podcast that I'm a part of. Loreto, it's been a joy to catch up with you. I haven't talked to you in ages. And B, it's just been a joy to share parts of your story on the podcast. And so I can't thank you enough for your time and your talents and your friendship today. Thank you.
Oh, no. Well, thank you, Eric. I appreciate everything you said, but, it's been great to talk to you. And I hope it doesn't take a long time in between the next time we get a chance to visit. And thank you. The podcast, I mean, you recently celebrated, 200 and some?
Yeah, your episodes probably end up being probably 216, 217. Yeah.
My God.
By the time it's released. And eight every other Tuesday for 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I mean,
and Garth too. Don't forget about Garth.
No, I was just going to say, you and Garth, you have created something here that is very important. And I feel I'm honored to have been a part of it.
Hey everyone, Garth here. Thanks for listening to Psych Sessions. If you could go to wherever you listen to our podcast and you would follow that podcast or like it, it really does help us as we are trying to get out to more teachers of psychology. Also, if you haven't checked out our website, please visit psychsessions.org and sign up for our monthly newsletter. We offer free resources and valuable news that you are going to want to know related to the teaching of psychology. Thanks.